Hi, everyone. I'm Lena Darnay from Keep Indiana Learning. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be a very quick session. We've got 15 minutes to talk about anticipatory sets and openers for your classroom. Now, I've tailored this to be specific to a STEM classroom, but really these anticipatory sets can be used in any classroom. I think this is one of the best ways to engage curiosity and to spark wonders and questions and get your kids really engaged in your content. So when we're looking at openers and building anticipation, that's really to like hook the kids in and engage them as learners. And there's some key ways that we are able to do that in minor preparatory ways. Like there are a couple of these that I'll show you that you could try tomorrow. If you need a copy of the slide deck, because I've given you lots of links and resources, go ahead and use that bit.ly, and I'll also try to put this in with the description. But please know that you can take anything I share here and share it yourself. I'm Lena Darnay. I work for Keep Indiana Learning. I'm a learning architect, which means I work with creating structures and environments that are conducive to learning of all kinds. And please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to keep going with this conversation and dig in deeper or answer any questions. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Curiosity and wonder is kind of my game. So anticipatory sets. This might be new terminology, but it's not a new idea. Just like in everything, we can all be talking about the same thing, but use different vocabulary. So this might be a new vocabulary term, but I'm guessing you already do some of this in your classroom. With an intentional anticipatory set, however, or sometimes people call them entry events or hooks, these allow students to mentally transition from class to class. I taught high school for a long time. And one of the things that was always hard is kids would come in, say, straight from English class or social studies or gym or band, and, trying to get them engaged in heavier content like, chemistry or, research design or, these types of things. It was hard because they weren't always in the mental frame. And I know how hard that is. If I'm transitioning from one topic to another, I have to kind of code switch. I have to be able to say like, okay, stop. Let me get my brain in that frame of mind. So when you're warming up those brain processes or transitioning from previous content into your content, this anticipatory set can do some of that work in a quick way, in a fun way, and it codes that information with dopamine. So it allows it to be fun and to be engaging and not stressful and heavy. And then you're behind and you don't feel like you're there. And then that just spirals, right? So when we create connections and relevance, or we allow the students to kind of mentally get into the game with your class, that allows that dopamine hit, that successful feeling, that engaging, I want to come back to this class because I know I'll immediately feel like my brain's ready to learn. So that's kind of the why behind these. I love to start with visuals. Now, I'm a visual learner, and I think we've all heard the statistic of 65% of people are visual learners, although that's kind of been debunked. I know that visuals are sticky, right? So if I see something and I can remember something clever or unique about a visual, I have better recall. And for a lot of people, that works. I don't know what the percentage is, and I don't know if it's that cut and dry, but I do know that many studies have shown that comprehension increases significantly when it's not just verbal or written, but has some visual connection, because our brains love to see things and make those connections. So I'm going to start with a few ways you can use visuals as openers. So this image with the duck and the rabbit is kind of a classic ambiguous image where some people are like, oh, no, that's obviously a duck. And some are like, no, that's obviously a rabbit. So I love using ambiguous images as openers because it starts that conversation, especially when you're just trying to get those processes warmed up. But imagine you're trying to get students to support with evidence, right? So if you could have them look at an image like, the frog that also could be a horse. They would have to support with context clues, evidence, give some really clear indicators as to why they are making one choice over the other. You could talk about bias, you could talk about perspective, right? I love the mammals and birds graph there, because that really talks about, like, if you turn me this way, I look this way. And it just allows for students to have the language of that academic supporting with evidence in a way that feels less risky, right? So whether or not you're defending a duck or a rabbit, a frog or a horse, that feels like you're getting in the practice without having to maximize your use of that academic vocabulary, which might be intimidating at first. It gives them the process. Love ambiguous images. I've given you a link to some that have a bunch of options for you. Oh, these are so fun too. Which one doesn't belong? Again, you can support a lot of these answers with evidence. Now, visuals, right now I'm giving you pictures, but these could totally be things you bring in, physical items that you bring into class. And then you have your students decide which one doesn't belong. And there is no one right answer. So it should be ambiguous enough where there's lots of right answers. So this one, I could say the nickel because it's not a penny, but then someone could say the single penny because it doesn't equal 5 cents. And, like, we could have lots of different ways to talk about which one doesn't belong. And this, again, warming up the processes. What are you noticing, wondering, questions you might ask? And then you can build your content to go deeper with this foundational understanding of that process. And that's not quite as foreign to them when they have that working style of what you're asking them to do, but you did it in a safe, fun, engaging way. Oh, analogies. Visual analogies are great because it really does show higher order thinking skills. So if I were to put a two-legged stool, like there's obviously a leg missing, up on the screen, and ask my students to talk about how does that missing leg relate to what we've been learning in class, or what your life feels like right now, or how they could make that connection to part of their content or something that they're looking forward to, right? Like, giving them a way to use analogies really does do that complex higher order thinking, because we used to call them SATs, right? Because they'd say, like dog is to cat, like hamster is to, and then you had to fill in the blank, right? So analogies are really key to making your brain flexible and nimble. And it gives them a chance to, again, learn the process of using that type of pattern of evidence and support before they have to put that heavy content in there too. I love analogies. You can find images anywhere. I mean, you could do cartoons and clip art, or you could, put a picture of a cat sleeping and ask, them, how does that relate to, I don't know, hidden images, or, all these different things. I love analogies. Play with those a little bit. Again, I've given you links to those. Okay, so those are kind of my visuals. Loving visuals. However, I also know that reading is also key to complex higher order thinking and being able to reason through verbal or written content. So I'm going to give you a few ways you might be able to bring that in. Data. Oh, again, I have a Master of Library Science that came from the School of Informatics. So data is kind of like my love language. Love quality data. Data is a neat way to start asking questions, because, as we all know, data is really in the interpretation. So you could give graphs, you could give a statistic, and then you could ask people to have a conversation. You can ask those students to turn and talk and try to justify what this data point might mean. And then again, like with the ambiguous language, how could they see the other side of that? What else could it be? What's the horse to the frog in that data? One of the things that I love, and this is maybe more for high school, potentially you could pull some key phrases or terms for middle school, but don't just let them loose on Harper's Index, because it is written for an adult audience. So it could have some adult and mature themes. But each month, Harper's Magazine puts out this index of statistics that are cited and referenced and used in the articles in their magazine, but they pull this content. I've given you the link to the latest Harper's Index for January, but these statistics will always make you go, really? What? Huh? No way. or that's fascinating, that's interesting. And I think that's a key way that data can spark questions like what fueled that, or how would I know that? What could I look at? What impact would that make? Fascinating. Harper's Index, love that one. Starting with an excerpt or a survey. So surveying students with their opinions or their prior knowledge, or kind of a set of leading questions that might have kind of loaded opinions there, would allow students to start thinking about the potential ways that the information you're about to share with them in your next unit or lesson might inform their own understandings. I think that's really powerful. It'd be great to then do it later again and see if some of their opinions have changed, or if their understandings of that same excerpt of text have changed, and what they might have pulled from your learning and put into their own working understanding of the content. I think that's a great way to do things like this. I love surveys. Again, you can get them standing up and doing an opinion meter around the classroom even. So if you ask them a couple of questions and they have to move to one side of the class or the other to be able to indicate they're agreeing or disagreeing with a statement, that can also be a way to increase movement, which is also key. But also it gives them that opportunity to see what everybody else is thinking. Good and bad, peer pressure can make you change your opinion, but good and bad, peer pressure can make you change your opinion. Quotes. Oh, we always love to start with quotes, but I'm going to throw an idea out here that I think works really well, both in the physical classroom or in a virtual classroom. So I've given you a link here in the deck, and of course you can snag this slide deck to a template where you could have students use a Google slide to sort quotes. I love to pull quotes from the content or the readings that we might be doing during the lesson. So these might be some key ideas. And then I just ask students in a small group to sort them. There is no wrong answer or right answer as to how to sort them. They sort them based upon their own criteria they come up with in a group. So they're reading these quotes, they're analyzing them against each other, and then they're thinking about how do they relate? How do we sort them in order of broadest to narrowest idea, or hardest to get started with, or easiest, or any of their categorization or the way that they're going to sort them. That allows them to kind of think about the content that you're preloading a little bit, you're giving a little teaser, and then you're also giving them a chance to think about their own understandings and what they might need to do to put them in some type of order. And then you ask them to justify the order, right? So again, we're getting back to that summarization, justifying with evidence, all of those key strategies that we know are so important in the STEM classroom and in any classroom. But this is a great way to open it up. So I've given you a link to a blank one of these so you can get started right away. Start small. It's a lot of fun though. Okay, I'm going to buzz through just a few other ways to get openers and anticipation going in your classroom. Music and lyrics is always fun. So I love to play like I Will Survive, or I'm a Survivor, and then we talk about something like global pandemics, and like how does this song relate to what we're studying with infectious disease, or if we're researching some of these key elements, how does this song potentially play in there? Or have your students make a chant or a chorus or a rhyme or a rap that might open that up, and then they could share that. Or maybe they start making a playlist for mitosis, right? Or they make a playlist, maybe not, but you could be for a lot of the parts of a process, right? Like you could have walk-up music for a cell, or walk-up music for mitochondria, right? Like what could this be? And allowing those students to pull in their personal passion and understanding. I always love music, and it can be quick, and it could happen multiple days in a row, because then they'll be listening for it when they're outside of your classroom, which is always a key thing. Oh, videos. Now, I know students and teachers kind of get over videoed a little bit, but using video can be really powerful. I love a good cliffhanger where you stop it right at a critical time and have the students ask questions or wonder or make predictions. And then your mini lesson or direct instruction could be giving them some of the clues. Then you play the rest of it at the end to see if they're right. How about a teaser? If we use videos, or if you've got something that you typically would show at the end of the unit or in the middle, pull a key part of that, pull it right at the beginning, and then have them always thinking back to that teaser piece and saying, like, how does this apply? How does this help you understand? Then when they see the whole thing in context, it allows them to make those connections. So easy, but maybe just switches the timeline a little bit. And then, of course, inspiration. Find those things on social media, or the new NASA video about Artemis is so powerful. And it just really, marketers, commercial creators, advertisement people, they are good at this. Like, let them inspire your class. This would be so fun to put a little inspiration in there. And then having the students ask, like, where do I want to go now? What would this make me think of? How could I drive my own passion? So inspiration is fine. Remember, these are small though. These are like 5-7 minutes. They're not long. An anticipatory set should only be about 10 minutes total. So don't feel like playing an entire 30-minute video is your opener, right? Like, that's kind of a traditional way of using video, and we want to make them a little less traditional. Opening with experiences. Field trips, y'all, go first. Don't always think that you have to wait till the end to do field trips. I used to take second graders to the zoo, and we would do that at the end of the animal unit, of course, right? They've already researched all their animals, and now they're just going to see the penguins. Well, when we tried it one year based upon just scheduling, and we had to go before, they wrote down so many better questions about their animals, and the research was so much more vibrant because they saw the animal first and could ask those questions and wonder, and then they already had those written. Your brain is on fire when you're there in person or virtual. Like, you could do this with virtual tours. There's so many really cool virtual tours going on now, but do it when you're curious, not after you've blasted your brain out and you don't really care about penguins anymore because you spent 6 weeks on them, right? So go at the beginning. Guest speakers, same thing. Bring in community partners, returning students from your school. 5th graders could come to a 2nd grade class and share something really exciting that gets them all jazzed up for doing some kind of unit. And that is so wonderful. It doesn't take a lot of effort to try to get a powerful speaker to spark curiosity. Don't think you have to have an expert from the field every time. Sometimes it's those internal famous folks, a senior in a freshman classroom. It could be a favorite teacher or the principal coming in to talk about a passion that they had for being a history teacher, whatever it might be. Find those people to come in. It's so much more interesting to have different voices. And then, of course, my chemistry folks, we'd love to put on a powerful demonstration at the beginning and just explode those really great experiments and have the kids ask questions, or, give them the baggie full of oobleck and have them ask questions about solids versus liquids, right? Like, I love demonstrations. So feeling like you have to know the answer. How did that work? How did that happen? The magic of it and deconstructing the magic. I always love it. So we're pretty much at the end of our time. Thank you so much for being here with me. I know it's a quick 15 minutes. So what I did is I gave you a list of other keywords to search for. Again, a librarian always. I want you to be able to go out and Google this and look for those keywords and terms that might be different than what you've heard before. But then also, I've given you a few of the resources I use to help fuel my own understanding. So I've shared those with you. Please look at keepindianalearning.org for more content. It's free, it's open, it's easy. We're everywhere you are looking, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. We even have a TikTok. So join us more. Thanks so much. See you next time.